Minecraft doesn't have the best ponds. They're a hole in the ground with some water. Sometimes there's some sugarcane, sometimes there's some flowers, but overall, not that impressive. So I challenged myself to make a better pond, and not just one, but 3. Of course, with the added challenge of each one being more complex and larger than the last. Starting with a 5x5, then a 10x10, and finally a 20x20. I started off by making a small pond, and I used stone stairs to give it a more unique shape for this small area. I didn't want to make it too deep because we are working in a 5x5 area. Adding some rocks nearby and merging it with the grass by turning it into mossy cobblestone. You can also see me making a custom cattail here with some stained glass and a candle. And I just want to add some vegetation to the water as well, because that's what I think of when I think of pond. So you can see me adding a small drip leaf, another cattail, and this custom lily pad with a flower in the middle, which is a coral. And that's about it for the 5x5. We can't really do much more in an area that small. So on to the 10x10 area. You can see me marking out my lake again. I wanted to go for a similar theme for all of these ponds, just scaled up and more extreme than the last. You can see me adding in those same rocks here and making sure that the water has some life in it by adding very similar vegetation from the first pond. And I actually had enough room to build a custom weeping willow tree. When I think of pond, I always think of a weeping willow tree, so here you can see me using the new azalea leaves and the glowberry vines. I made a custom swing as well, so you can look at your small pond. And that's it for the 10x10. Now over to the 20x20 area, I wanted this build to be more magical than the first two, since I had more space to work with. You can see me working out the very large pond here. It's almost as large as the 10x10 area was itself. And once again, getting in those rocks, having them be a bit more detailed than the first two. Since this was the largest build, I wanted to texture the bottom of the pond by using different kinds of stone, some clay, and some soul sand. I added very similar vegetation from the first two. I added those cattails, the seagrass under the water, and some of those lily pads up on the surface as well. When I added these fish into the pond, you can see that they actually jumped on the soul sand bubbles, so that was really fun to watch while I was building this. I began marking out where I wanted my trees to go, and since this was a more magical build, I was going to build some custom mushroom trees. I started building a red one that was a basic mushroom shape over here, using 3 different blocks to give it some texture. And on the underside, I added some weeping vines from the nether to add some depth to this. Over here, I made a 2-stemmed mushroom, but since I didn't have a color palette planned out for this one yet, we'll come back to that later. I added a small red mushroom to fill up this space, and I started on a medium-sized red mushroom over here to bring some balance to this build. And eventually I decided on a blue color palette for this mushroom over here. They're a bit pointier than the red ones, and one of them is actually on a diagonal. I think this is my favorite custom mushroom I have made so far. And over here I began working on a very large weeping willow tree. You can see me adding in some branches here and adding the leaves and dropping them down to make the weeping willow effect. After touching up the leaves for a bit to get the right willow shape, I came underneath and added some more of those glowberry vines, and I added the hanging lanterns as well to this tree. Over here I made a smaller weeping willow just to fill out this space. This weeping willow is very similar in size to the one in the 10 by 10 pond. I placed flowers, moss, and ferns around to add some color and some texture to the ground in some of the more flat areas. And over here I built a small swing set, and underneath our large weeping willow tree I placed a small bench. After some final details around, such as adding sugarcane and some small azalea bushes to fill in the empty spots, I thought this 20 by 20 pond was complete and looking magical and very, very full of life. This was incredibly fun to build. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, bop that like button and make sure to subscribe to see future content.